Like, share, subscribe, leave a comment. This is part two. And let me send the invite if anybody wants to come up. Okay, now let's see. Now, this is from the former FBI, no, former acting ICE director.
We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
This is the lie. Now, lie. I just ain't never seen nobody who lie and don't make no sense. No sense, like speaks gibberish for real, because it make me scratch my head. Wait for it.
Years ago, that President Trump's push for a border wall was needed to stop terrorists from crossing. She downplayed going to see the border crisis firsthand. Watch this and watch President Trump.
And so the question has come up, and you heard it here, and you'll hear it again, I'm sure. It's why not visit the border?
We've been to the border. So this whole thing about the border, we've been to the border. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
Hold on. Every time. I'm going to start this over with. Dior! Jesus Christ Almighty, you can't make this up. I probably just need to stop the interview. Hold on, I'm about to put the dog up. I guess she done. Start. Oh my God. Oh my God, you can't make this up. Dior. I'm in the middle of a live stream. Oh, sorry, y'all. You can't make this up. Once again, see if I can edit this out.
You know, Kamala Harris mocked the idea a few years ago that President Trump's push for a border wall was needed to stop terrorists from crossing. She downplayed going to see the border crisis firsthand. Watch this and watch President Trump.
And so the question has come up, and you heard it here, and you'll hear it again, I'm sure. It's why not visit the border?
We've been to the border. So this whole thing about the border, we've been to the border. We've been to the border.
You haven't been to the border.
And I haven't been to Europe.
Kamala Harris's daily destruction of America's borders is completely and utterly disqualifying for her to be president. You can have a person like this as president. No person who deliberately releases these kinds of savage criminals to prey on our youth and our people, not just youth. Elderly people, too, are tremendous targets, should ever be trusted with power. Again, she has no clue. She has no clue. She's evil. The one job Kamala had was the border. That's the only job, and it was the biggest disaster in all of border history.
Okay, let's bring in for his reaction former acting ICE director Tom Homan. So, Tom, let's get to this news. You heard President Trump there. You heard Kamala Harris on the border. So, Tom, more than 1,600, now nearly 1,700 illegal aliens with links to terrorism caught crossing the border under Biden, and now 3 Palestinian terror suspects caught crossing as well illegally in the San Diego sector. Tom, this is right after the 10/7 Hamas terror attack on Israel. But didn't Kamala Harris and Biden say Biden's recent executive action would stop all this?
They did, but once again, they're lying to the American people. And we got to remember, under Trump, in 4 years, we had 13. 13. So, look, the terrorist organizations around the world know if you can get to the border, you can cross the border, you'll be released. We'll fly you to the city of your choice. We'll put you in a free hotel room. We'll give you 3 meals a day. We'll give you free medical care. And wait for 90 days, you get work authorization. Who the hell wouldn't come? So, look, what concerns me more about the ones they arrested is the 2 million gotaways. 2 million people paid the cartels more not to take advantage of all that free giveaway stuff. They paid more to get away. That just scared the hell out of everybody. It does me. We know there's sleeper cells in this country. We know terrorists a few weeks ago covered lines, but we all know it tells 9/11. They missed the weapons of mass destruction in Iraq. They're not perfect. Thank God they found this one, but are they going to find the next one?
You know, what you're saying is very concerning. We have half a dozen House Democrats voted for a House resolution condemning Kamala Harris's work as border czar. That included Democrat Henry Cuellar. I mean, she's backing off of the idea that she was overseeing and given the job of overseeing the border by Biden in March of 2021. She's running away from having any responsibility for that job as terrorists, criminals, murderers, rapists are caught crossing. And, you know, agents have little to no criminal or terror data overseas on who was crossing. So we've got illegal alien gangs, terrorists with shootings, drug trafficking, sex trafficking, pickpocketing, scooter robbery, home invasion gangs. This is in New York City and now other cities as well, Tom.
Well, people need to understand Kamala Harris picked up the border czar for one reason, because she wasn't going to fix it. They knew she wasn't going to fix it. She supported sanctuary cities. She compared ICE to the KKK. She slandered the men of the Horse Patrol for whipping black migrants, called them racist when we know it wasn't true. She has spread sanctuary cities across the entire state of California when she was Attorney General. They knew she wasn't supportive of a secure border. They know she's not in favor of any type of immigration enforcement. So that's why she was picked at a border czar. And I find it strange that President Biden the other day was bragging how illegal crossings are down 50%, which they're not, but they're claiming they did a great job on the border. But Kamala Harris is running away from that, which tells me even they know it's a joke and the border's out of control. It's a wide open border.
Is the data really down 40%?
I'm just saying, and the headline just came up. This just came up. Hold on, let me on my other phone. Breaking new polling. This is on Twitter. Oh, this is under her. Breaking new polling shows Republicans and independents are abandoning Donald Trump and flocking to Vice President Kamala Harris. This is huge. You mean, and these are some of the comments, you mean there aren't flocking to the felon, fraudster, sexual assaulter, and habitual liar, faith in humanity nearly restored. Thank you. That's from Kingfo. The Democrats have dropped by, but make no mistake about it, Kamala Harris is even more radical. Yes, she is. So they're saying that Kamala is even more extreme than Biden. She is way more far left. Then an hour ago, Real Vinny, new polling data shows Trump is winning by a landslide. See how anybody can make claims like that? It's propaganda. It's reprehensible behavior. Manipulation at its best. Manipulation of the populace shows you're not only weak, but treacherous. Harris landslide is incoming. We might need a bigger venue for the next VP rally. Yeah, this is a landslide in the making. Honey, listen, you can't make this up. United States has become a shit show, pretty much. This is the most embarrassing election I've ever seen. But anyway, getting to here's some views of black black voters.
Is it only because she a black woman? Yeah. Do you not see the how elaborate? We're in she's at work policy.
First of all, I think I forwarded that to 20 of my friends. That was such an awesome takedown. But tell us about that, because I saw some of the other participants but tell us about your interactions with people who happen to be African American who instinctively seem to go for Kamala because it's the right thing to do.
Absolutely. I think it's unfortunate because the majority of my interactions is me being looked at as the bad guy because ultimately they think that I'm supposed to be on code, even though I know and they know that it's not in our best interest, in my family's best interest, in the country's best interest. And when we continue to play identity politics, the thing that they usually refer to is our previous history and electing people in office that ultimately even they will concede that they didn't have our best interests at heart. And so when I'm interacting with these people, often at times it's very difficult for them to step outside of being on code in order to do the thing that's even in their best interest. So I'm often looked at as a bad guy, but in reality, they know I'm telling the truth. And that's why it's so difficult for them to be able to convey and then debate what it is that I'm telling them, because they already know what the truth is. They're not unfamiliar with what it is that they experienced over the last 3.5 years. They're suffering. They don't have jobs. They have lower wages. They can't pay their bills. And so when they experience this, but it's very difficult for us as a community to then break away from the popular thing to do because they don't want to be a part of the cool kids club anymore.
Well, Stacey, I have to say that seems to sum it up. It's reflexive, and it takes a lot of courage. You know that. Of course, Anton knows that. I clerked for Justice Thomas. I mean, they're still beating him up all these years later. So it's a tough place to be, but it's factually the right place to be. So, Stacey, how do you handle this? And by the way, Kamala Harris behind in Georgia in the swing state poll average, I think by 4 points, 5 points, 6 points. So she's speaking in Atlanta, lots of Kamala signs behind her. One white dude behind her, I see him. Stacey, thoughts on this?
You know, Laura, I think Anton hit the nail on the head. This is about policy, and no one, I don't care who you are, if you're a white woman, a black woman, it doesn't matter what your skin is. What matters is, how do these policies impact you? How does the policy of open borders and giving jobs to foreigners instead of Americans impact your bottom line? How does the double-digit inflation, which stacks up month after month, is cumulative, impact your bottom line? Can you still save money? Can you take a vacation? Can you buy that home? Can you upgrade? Can you move out of an apartment into a house? These are very real impacts. Anton described them well. And I think when I find people that only want me to address my life as if I get up every morning and say, what am I going to do today because I'm black? They don't understand me. I'm a human being. I'm a mom. I'm a wife. I'm just somebody's mom on the radio. I'm just somebody's mom on Laura Ingraham tonight for the first time. Thank you. But I'm sitting here listening to Anton. He makes sense. And what makes sense to me is what the policy is, you know?
Well, okay, these are facts, okay? And into the image making of Kamala, even the New York Times today, and forgive me for not having the direct quote, but the New York Times today had to write a piece about Kamala's biographical transformation. And there was a piece about Marxist economist at Stanford, he's still alive, very controversial, but he's a tenured professor at Stanford University, that she never really talked much about him, that he's kind of a footnote in her biography. But then she leans into it, Anton, and President Trump spoke about this with me. She leans into it, I guess, for her political benefit.
Absolutely. And I think that identity politics is the play. When you don't have anything else to lean on, when you spent the majority of the time being absent. And then on top of that, you then advocated for being part of the alphabet community, which I call them. And then you failed at the border to the tune of the estimation of 10 to 15 million migrants coming into this country illegally. What else do you have to stand on? So then you start to lean on the thing that even black people, honestly, when I'm having these conversations, black people don't even consider her a part of the cool kids club, but they have to lean on it in order to have something to even be able to hold on to instead of just saying, hey, listen, Trump is the best candidate. They want to say that I want to be a part of the Democratic Party. So they figure out a way to validate themselves to be a part of this movement, which is not even best for them. It's silly.
Stacey, a friend of mine who went to law school with me, just messaged.
That is so true. That is so true. I'm gonna get in a couple of more clips. I'm not gonna play all of these. Lord.
What she is actually admitted to, because we got to stop all this, allowing people like her to play games with Black Americans. Okay, you can just not blackness when you're for your own benefit on that, whatever it may be. But let's go ahead on and cue up Donald J. Trump from the NABJ yesterday, and let's just have this conversation.
A long time indirectly, not directly very much. And she was always of Indian heritage, and she was only promoting Indian heritage. I didn't know she was black.
Yeah, well, the Democratic Party for a very long time, not just this election cycle, has been doing a lot of active outreach around the South Asians, around the API in general, and we'll continue to do it. I mean, what we know in particular when you're talking about the South Asian community, we're talking about the Indian community more specifically, it is a growing community in the United States in terms of its voting bloc, in terms of its participation, and I think the party knows that and knows that this is part of our collective community, and there needs to be outreach and inclusion.
And certainly, first Indian senator in U.S. history, which would be quite an accomplishment.
Not good.
He could become the first Indian senator in U.S. history, which would be quite an accomplishment.
Not good.
Okay, so what we're going to cook today is an Indian recipe.
Yes.
Because
Yes.
you are Indian.
Yes.
Okay, and I don't know that everybody knows that, but I find that wherever I go and I see Indian people at the supermarket, on the street, everyone's like, Kamala Harris is Indian, right? It's like our thing we're so excited about to have you running for president.
Yeah.
So we're both Indian,
Yes.
but actually we're both South Indian.
Yes. You look like the entire one half of my family.
Okay, thank you.
You do.
I've been telling people
You
we're
do.
related already,
Yeah.
so this is perfect. It's basically true.
It is my true, distinct pleasure to introduce the first senator, and I'm not going to say this, the first senator of Indian American heritage in the history of U.S. Senate.
But I want to thank you. And my Chitti is here, my mother's youngest sister. Chinni Mahalakshmi Subhash is here, and I want to thank her. She flew in from Toronto to be with us this evening. Please, Chitti, will you wave?
Until a number of years ago when she happened to turn black, and now she wants to be known as black. So I don't know, is she Indian or is she black?
She has always
But you know
identified
what?
as a black
I
woman. She went to a
respect
historically
either
black
one.
college.
I respect either one, but she obviously doesn't, because she was Indian all the way, and then all of a sudden she made a turn and she became. a
Just to be
person.
clear, sir, do
And
you
I
believe
I
that
think
she is
somebody should look into that too when you ask a continued, very hostile, nasty tone.
It's a direct question.
All right, so that was Kamala Harris in her own words.
Oh shoot. Okay, let's get to the next clip.
to migrant influx stirs longstanding frustrations among Black residents, and rightfully so, ladies and gentlemen. Now, they had the closure of Wadsworth Elementary School in 2013, and it was a blow to residents of a majority Black neighborhood it served, symbolizing a city indifferent to their interests. So when the city reopened Wadsworth last year to shelter hundreds of migrants without seeking the community input, it added insult to injury. Across Chicago, Black residents are frustrated. Their long-standing needs not being met, while the city's newly arrived are cared for with a sense of urgency and with their tax dollars. Remember, ladies and gentlemen, this is the Democrat Party. The migrant crisis, the Biden-Harris migrant crisis. They created that crisis. That crisis wasn't like that before they got into office. On day one of the Biden-Harris.
But that's because the United States is a part of the global compact of migration, which I talked about on this channel. And I read to you the policy. The United Nations runs our borders, not us. The global compact of migration is from the United Nations and World Economic Forum. Open borders. They believe in open borders. And that's a fact. We don't run that. And in that policy, it says if a migrant comes into your country, you have to house them, clothe them, feed them, help them learn the language, and find them a job. You make them able-bodied people so they can support themselves. And that's what we do, because we are a part of the global compact of migration. Facts. Okay, this is Dr. Umar Johnson.
Revolution. When people don't think they have a say in government, rebellions happen. So it is important for the power structure, the corporate oligarchy, to manipulate the American collective consciousness into voting for the person they pre-selected. It is important that the people come to the same conclusion through manipulation and indoctrination as the power structure. When the power structure chooses one president and the people choose someone else, then the illusion of a democracy begins to yield its dirty head. And that's the trouble for maintaining the status quo in the social order. For example, in our lives, we've seen twice where a presidential candidate who won the popular vote lost the White House. Al Gore won the popular vote.
Yeah.
George Bush won the White House. Hillary Clinton won the popular vote. Donald Trump won the White House. They can't keep letting that happen, because the more and more that the people choose one person and the power structure choose another, when people start to see that we really don't control this government, we really don't choose our leaders, they start to rebel. And that's why so much energy is put into the popular vote, because it needs to confirm the selection of the secret government. Now, with that being said, who do I think the power structure wants in the White House at this moment? Because they normally select presidents a couple years in advance, by the way. At least 4 years, they already know who's going to take the place. They leave nothing up to chance. I'm not sure who they want. And the reason I'm conflicted is because they made Joe Biden stand out. A part is that they wanted Biden, but he's not popular enough to carry the popular vote. Again, maintaining that illusion of democracy. So a part of me says they wanted Joe Biden, but he's no longer popular enough to hold the popular vote. So to keep the illusion of democracy alive, we got to tell Barack Obama to tell him to stand down. Let's put somebody else in that spot and see if they can carry it. That's a part of me. The other part of me could see a Donald Trump. And the reason another part to see a Donald Trump is Donald Trump and Republican presidents in general are pretty good for war. They're very good for sparking up war. But although they're good for war, they are poor at building relationships with second and third world nations. Why am I bringing that up? China is on the rise. China is on the global takeover. Can Donald Trump build the relationships with South Africa? Can he build the relationships with Nigeria and Cameroon? Can Donald Trump build the relationships with Ethiopia and Egypt that the shadow government needs America to have so they can continue to go into the mother continent and freely exploit the resources? I'm not sure Donald Trump is the president to build those political relationships with Africa, Jamaica, Brazil, so forth and so on. I'm not sure he's good for that. And if he's not good for that, if the shadow government doesn't believe Donald Trump is good enough to build those diplomatic relationships so white corporate America can continue to rob resources of black nations of this world, then they might choose resources over war. It's really going to come down to whether or not the Chinese threat more or the need to make money in war more. In other words, is this election more about the ability to dominate other people, or is it more about being diplomatic and being able to build relationships with Africa so you can exploit them diamonds, that gold, that silver, that gas, that oil? So I'm not sure which way the shadow government is tipping its hat because I'm not in those meetings, but I'll tell you what will help me make a better decision as to who they want in the White House. When I see who the final Democratic nominee is, if it's not going to be Kamala Harris, and who will be the vice presidential nominee for the presidential nominee. In other words, let me see who the Democrats end up with for president, and let me see who that Democratic presidential nominee ends up here as to whether or not the shadow government wants the Democratic president or the Republican president.
You personally, who do you want to see represent the Democrats?
Nobody, because I don't see anyone when I look at the U.S. senators, when I look at the U.S. representatives, when I look at, I think we only have one or two black governors, the brother down in Maryland, he's a freshman. So I doubt if they'll anoint him and pull another Barack Obama stunt where they snatched Obama out the U.S. Senate as a first-term senator and made him president. That's because George Bush destroyed America's relationship with Africa. Barack Obama became necessary because of George Bush's poor diplomatic relationship with Africa. So they said, here's a black
That's
man
interesting.
who pledges to have a Kenyan father. If we put Barack Obama in the White House, we can go into Africa, get them resources back, install our military system in Africa. And that's exactly what they did. Barack Obama was a supreme success for the white power structure. That's how they chose him. And just like George Bush made Obama necessary, Obama made Donald Trump necessary domestically, because Americans domestically got tired of hearing Barack Obama's rehearsed, pre-scripted answers to every question he was given. When Donald Trump came, sounding like a fool, but speaking from his heart, that endeared him to Americans who are sick and tired of the political game. They just want a genuine leader, even if he doesn't always make the right mistakes. So Bush made Obama necessary, Obama made Trump necessary, and then Trump made Biden necessary, and now Biden, it appears, may once again be making Trump necessary. But for me, I don't see anyone on the blue aisle or the red aisle that's speaking to the issues that affect American Africans. The George Floyd police reform bill still hasn't been passed. Nobody's talking about that. We don't have any anti-black hate legislation at all. We have no economic
Now, you know what? That's right. And she helped promote, and they passed the Asian hate crime bill. And as many of our people that have been unalived and everything else in this country, you would think they would have had a black anti-hate crime bill, but they didn't. But the Asians got it. And she already told you she ain't gonna do nothing for us. She already told you that. Now that's Umar. Hold on. Now let me see. I'm almost done. let's get to Tulsi.
To California, and she fought to.
So that's the case for Kamala. The case against Kamala and what makes Democrats so nervous. And we'll start by rolling this clip. Famous. The substance of what you're about to watch is important, but in some ways almost less important than what it says about, who Kamala Harris is as a politician, as a candidate, and as a candidate. So let's roll this and then talk about the problems that were formed yet.
Congresswoman Gabbard, you took issue with Senator Harris confronting Vice President Biden at the last debate. You called it a quote.
I bring the conversation back to the broken criminal justice system that is disproportionately negatively impacting Black and brown people all across this country today. Senator Harris says she's proud of her record as a prosecutor and that she'll be a prosecutor president, but I'm deeply concerned about this record. There are too many examples to cite, but she put over 1,500 people in jail for marijuana violations and then laughed about it when she was asked if she ever smoked marijuana. She blocked evidence. She blocked evidence that would have freed an innocent man from death row until the courts forced her to do so. She kept people in prison beyond their sentences to use them as cheap labor for the state of California. And she fought to keep cash bail system in place that impacts poor people in the worst kind of way.
Thank you, Congresswoman. Senator Harris, your response.
As the elected Attorney General of California, I did the work of significantly reforming the criminal justice system of a state of 40 million people, which became a national model for the work that needs to be done. And I am proud of that work. And I am proud of making a decision to not just give fancy speeches or be a legislative body and give speeches on the floor, but actually doing the work of being in the position to use the power that I had to reform a system that is badly in need of reform. That is why we created initiatives that were about re-entering former offenders and getting them counseling. It is why, and because I know that criminal justice system is so broken, that I am an advocate for what we need to do to not only decriminalize, but legalize marijuana in the United States.
I want to bring Congresswoman Gabbard back in. Your response.
The bottom line is, Senator Harris, when you are in a position to make a difference and an impact in these people's lives, you did not. And worse yet, in the case of those who are on death row, innocent people, you actually blocked evidence from being revealed that would have freed them until you were forced to do so. There is no excuse for that. And the people who suffered under your reign as prosecutor, you owe them an apology.
And so what's important to understand about that exchange, we can put a D10 here. So
Listen. This is one man's story.
For those whose voices aren't being heard, to see and address the causes of crime, not just their consequences, and to shine a light on the inequality and unfairness that lead to injustice. It is to recognize that not everyone needs punishment, that what many need, quite obviously, is help. Kamala Harris wrote that in her book, The Truce We Hold. Does that sound consistent with the brand of justice that you saw administered by offices that she was running?
It definitely sounds like Kamala Harris right now as a senator. But at the time of her being the head district attorney of San Francisco, that is almost polar opposite of what I felt and what our community felt in San Francisco.
So Jamal, where are we?
Right now we are at Sunnydale Projects, where I was born and raised at. Now this isn't a place that you'll want to bring outsiders into, and a place that they don't want to go. This ain't a place that feels comfortable. It feels like you might get robbed, you might get shot.
Police were keeping files on you, your brothers, and other people who were living in Sunnydale from a very young age.
They already had me labeled because I'm in this community as a potential gang member, potential killer, potential drug dealer. You gotta wake up to the fact that, things are set up against us.
There is a conspiracy.
There is proven in court. Absolutely. Places like this have been developed for predominantly African American people to not be able to succeed beyond it.
Yeah. What did you know about Kamala Harris? What did you know about San Francisco having a black DA?
Nobody in the hood ever worried or focused on the DA position in general, but people did focus on it just a tad bit, that it was black, and feeling like, okay, this black lady in office, Kamala Harris, she's gonna understand where we come from, and have more of a sympathetic way of prosecuting people that come from our communities who have been plagued with no opportunities. This is Hunter's Point, where these different projects and communities used to really war with each other.
Jamal, in July 2007, what's going on in your life at that point?
I had recently just came off of I Love New York, and also that's when my Marcel Kuka got killed.
More than a year goes by, and no one's been arrested in the case. You hadn't even been questioned.
I haven't even been questioned, no. The police was still, trying to get a conviction by all means necessary. When I was arrested for it, the community knew I didn't do it. And it was here we go again. See, this is why we don't trust, law enforcement, because it gets to a point where somebody who didn't do something goes to jail for it. I don't have no history of crime. It's not right. I have a history of being around in the community, but that doesn't mean that I'm a suspect. I'm like, oh man, I'll be out within 72 hours. They're going to figure this out. They're going to clear this up.
Then when you found out what the evidence was that they supposedly had you on, there wasn't much there. Can you describe what it was?
They had a woman saying that she seen me kill Sal. The second witness that they had really wasn't a witness at all. She said anything that the police officers wanted her to say, and they said that her recollection of the event was extremely credible. So that's what ultimately got the arrest warrant.
The district attorney has appeared in the courtroom during your trial twice.
Yeah, the two times that Kamala Harris showed up to my trial was when I got convicted, and also when they laid down the sentencing.
When you saw her on the day that
well aware about my case, and she was there to set her presence, almost take pride in getting a conviction. When I put in my appeal, the people that's fighting against my appeal to keep the conviction is the Attorney General office. I learned it reading, their reply to my appeal, and you see Kamala Harris' name at the bottom. And now it's starting to feel a little personal.
When you win the $13.1 million, it's a massive settlement. Did you feel like that was enough?
There's not an amount that could get back those 7 years. 6.5 years that I spent in prison. But instead of me coming home feeling like I was a victim, I wanted to prove that I'm a survivor, and I will not let my story go unheard. I'm not necessarily saying I'm looking for an apology, but some acknowledgement from her that she could have messed up will be, of course, that'd be huge. You could have made some mistakes. You could have missed some things. For me, it was a big miss. I had life in prison. I've met people in prison that was wrongfully convicted. I want my story to be out to provoke reform ultimately. Beyond that, I want...
Wow. Y'all vote for her if you want to. It's your choice. Now, I'm going to end this with Joe Brown, because Joe Brown can't stand her. Oh shoot, where I have everything. Where is Joe Brown? Okay, here we go.
Be unburdened by what has been.
But I gotta ask you about Kamala Harris. How you feel about her?
She's a piece of shit. I was in California. She lacked professional competence, and she worked on hyper hemline, which she needed once rather than researching. Whoa. I was out in California for 15 years doing my show when she was at her peak, and she had a reputation amongst the trial lawyers of being lazy. She just hike her skirt up and try to flirt, and
she's a floozy.
She wasn't that good in the courtroom, if not pretty bad in the courtroom. So I'm not surprised at what she does. She's 60 years old, and I think listening to her word salad and the way she talks, I think she's got early onset dementia and also some problems with menopausal complications. And
I think it's safe to say that Judge Joe Brown is not voting for Kamala Harris.
that's that. You see, today is going to be tomorrow. So since it's going to be tomorrow, today we have tomorrow, which is why we are now.
That,
what did you say?
exactly.
They have something in mind, but they cannot cognate getting all the way through it, which is why she's famous for this word salad garbage, and she doesn't make a bit of sense.
I think it's very important, as you have heard from so many incredible leaders, for us at every moment in time, and certainly this one, to see the moment in time in which we exist and are present, and to be able to contextualize it, to understand where we exist in the history and in the moment as it relates not only to the past but the future. I can imagine what can be and be unburdened by what has been. You know, what can be unburdened by what has been. There are
You
those
can't
who
make this
are
up.
unable to see what can be, but there are many more who are able to see what can be unburdened by what has been. Remember Venn diagrams, those three circles? Right. And then let's just see where they overlap. You will not be surprised because I have constructed a Venn diagram on this. Remember those three circles, how they overlap? I love Venn diagrams. So I just do. Whenever you're dealing with conflict, pull out a Venn diagram, right? And so, you know, the three circles.
Ukraine is a country in Europe. It exists next to another country called Russia. Russia is a bigger country. Russia is a powerful country. Russia decided to invade a smaller country called Ukraine. So basically, that's wrong.
Wow, you can't make this up.
I'm a woman sitting at the table wearing a blue suit.
I think since she's only 60, she's actually on a worse track than Biden was. Biden is 20 some years older than her, and he has been senile for a long time. Now, about 5 or 6 years ago, when did they start ramping up to do this? 2019. Okay, I was saying Biden has been a failure his whole adult career, a second-rate, third-string player. He's in the game, so he wants to make a name for himself. I considered him for years poor trailer park, urban trailer park trash. And he's a crook. He's a third stringer. Now, what I said he was going to do is he probably wants to claim fame for being the first person to see to it that a woman got to be president. And what I predicted, I'm slightly wrong on it, was that he was going to get in, try to get elected, and if he got one term, try to get elected for a second one. And then halfway through his term, when he had served 2 years, to retire or resign in her favor.
Wait a minute. I want to get to this other part because I need to end this. Hold on. Let me go to this last.
Here we go.
look, if you want to find out about it, go online to the LA Times morgue. They used to have it so for a fee you could get them to pull articles. They've been reporting on her for 30 some years. She's in her 20s, and Willie Brown took her up as his mistress. There was a medical firm that dealt with San Francisco. He got her a 15-hour-a-week part-time job there, which she never showed up to, according to the Times. But they paid her $72,000 a year for 15 hours a week. And understand, which is 30 some years ago, that's big money now. So he got her promoted up, so she did 20 hours a week. Times reported she never showed up, but she got 120 grand a year. So he bought her a 750i BMW, which was the top of the line at the time. So he set her up with all of the connections to get her into politics. The Times did a thing about this thing she had allegedly with an NBA player to get a job with a big law firm, and then a thing they did on her with the assistant director for the district attorney's office to get on with them, and then Montel Williams, and then back to Willie Brown, and then the rest of the whole thing, and she winds up with a Hollywood lawyer type not long before she runs for senator. So, and she adopts his children. She doesn't have any of her own, not saying it's a requirement, but it sure as hell helps, because I think the only two presidents of significance that didn't have children officially, George Washington and Andrew Jackson. And Andrew Jackson was a homicidal maniac. George Washington had enough by the slaves before he got sterile by disease. And the other three out of the five known ones, they weren't too good. They were has-been, never was type. So I say that I know what I thought when I was a young man. Such things didn't make differences, but then I'd never had to be a parent. You never had to get up sick and go to work when you didn't feel like it, because you could have the bills to pay. You never had to be reliable when you had other things to do. And having this legacy that you have to pass on, and not wanting to do anything that shames your grandchildren because they do it.
Well, it's fair to say Judge Joe Brown can't stand her because he called her a hoe and everything else. All right, I'm going to end this live stream because I've been going, oh, it's almost our Lord Hammers. Like, share, subscribe, leave a comment, please. All right, I'm coming back because I got to do 3 more videos.